So what we're going to look at in 8G is when we have change of scenarios. So this is generally what will happen in the real world. So you start off, you get these big, say, home loans, or even you're investing, and things change, like interest rates change, and so then therefore things have to be adjusted. You know, maybe I can't afford that payment, or I'll have to pay a higher payment. So this is where we're going to look at change of scenario. The best way to think about these ones, and you're going to get these is when they get a little bit more challenging, is always like break up the scenario as if you're doing the first bit as a problem, finish that off, and then you use that data to start up again. And you'll see what I mean when I go through these examples. So let's have a first look at this one. And this one's when we're going to change the payment, but it doesn't matter, we'll go through it. All right, so Derek invests $50,000 into a compound interest investment. So we're going to be using Finance Solver. So when you invest money, it's a negative PV. And compound interest paying 6.1% per annum. So that's the I. And it says compounding annually. So PPY is equal to 1. All right. So then it says Derek invests an additional $8,000. So that means he's putting an additional $8,000 per year immediately after interest is calculated. They will always write that wording. So it's just to say they're doing it at the same time pretty much. Okay, so but because he's putting extra into the bank, that's a payment, and but it's a negative payment on Finance Solver because he's putting it into the bank. So here it says after 5 years, Derek will increase his additional investment. So his payments are going to increase to $10,000 per year. Okay, so here's where we're going to have a change in scenario after 5 years. So I might just put what N is. And because it's annually, it's like N will be 5 times 1 there. So, and then it says calculate the investment after 12 years. So you got to remember the whole scenario is 12 years. So what we like to do is, this is where I've said, we're going to start off and see what's happened. Where is he up to at the end of the 5 years before the change? So what we're going to do then, so I'll just write here, I'm going to say this is the first 5 years. Okay, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do on Finance Solver. So let's write out all our little titles. If we write them all out first, then we know we've got to look through. So what I'm saying, at 5 years, something changed. So we want to know, really what we're going to find out is this final value at that 5 years, because we want to see what's happening and then keep going because there's a change. So at 5 years annually, so 5 times 1, he's got an interest rate of 6.1. He invested $50,000 and his payment were negative $8,000. And we want to know what this final value is. We want to know where this investments are, and PPY is 1. So let's do that and find out the final value. Okay, so at the end of the 5 years, his investment, and it's a positive because that's what the bank owes him, is $112,414, and I'm going to do this nearest cent, which is 0.36. Okay, so now this is what he is at that 5 years. So we're sitting at the 5 year mark, and then that's when he increased his payments. So we're going to pretend like we're starting again, because now we want to know the final value, but after this payment increase. So if he's already gone 5 years, we've got how many more to make up to 12?
7.
Yeah, so this is going to be the next 7 years. Okay, so what you do is we're going to do the next 7 years, and we're pretending like we're at the start again, but obviously we're going to change that payment. And obviously the question's going to be, we want to know in the end the final value. So what we're going to do is we've got 7 years to go, so 7 times 1. The interest rate didn't change, so I can keep that. Now, we are at the 5-year mark. So what we're going to pretend is like we're investing what his investment is up to. So this is where you're going to now put that final value, because that's what the investment's up to. It becomes your PV. But remember, it has to be a negative. So it'll be negative because it's like I'm investing that money. Oops, sorry. So I'm investing that money into the bank, and now he's also making that payment, which is a little bit bigger, which is 10,000. And the final value is going to be what I want to know, and PPY is 1. So this is what will happen. You'll take a final value, it'll become your new PV. Okay, so when I pop that in, obviously I get, this is going to be my final value, and I get my answer to be $254,343.79. So it says calculate the value of Derek's investment after 12 years. So we'll just say after 12 years, we're going to say it's 254. They didn't say any decimal place, so we'll just do to the nearest cent. That's it. So here we're going to have a change in interest rate. So they could change anything. So be wary. So it doesn't matter. But here's an example of a change in interest rate. This is probably more common thing to happen. So Adrian borrows 150,000. So because he borrowed, he's going to get it given to him. So it's a positive PV on Finance Solver. And it says for 25 years. So that's just the total time. So we sometimes have to just be careful with that, because when we have a change of scenario, they often don't tell you maybe how long the second half is going to be after the change. So we need to make sure it's going to be up to 25. So it has an interest rate of 6.8. So that would be I, compounding monthly. So this means PPY is 12 in Finance Solver. Okay, for the first 3 years, Adrian makes payments. So because he borrowed it, remember payments will be a negative number because he's giving it back to the bank. And this was 3 years. So I like to put underneath N would be 3 times 12 because it's monthly. Okay, after 3 years, the interest rate changes. So we can see we get a new I, and he still wishes to pay the loan off in 25 years. So even though the interest rate went up, he still wants to keep his loan at to finish off after 25 years. And so he's adjusted his payments. So he's still going to be making, and you can see they're a little bit bigger. And it says here, so he makes 263 payments followed by a final payment. So if you did, so you can see, so what, this is 22. If you do 22 times 12, because if he's gone 3 years, his second part would be 22 more years. Does that make sense? So if you do 22 times 12, you end up with 264. So that's what they're talking about. Sorry, my Vivi. So because 22, there'd be 22 more years to go. We would have 264 payments. 264 payments at this new payment, 1,076. But they're saying 263 because you're going to adjust the last one. But remember, we're going to keep following what I've told you to do. You should always just go to the end of the final payment, and then adjust it. And when we get to that bit, we'll do it. So it's saying calculate the final payment. So that's the question in total of the 25 years and round to your nearest cent. So we first need to know what happened in the first 3 years. So we've got the first 3 years we're going to do again, and we're going to see what he still owes pretty much after the first 3 years. So I'm writing down payment, FV and PPY. So let's write down what we've got to do. So it's the first 3 years, so it's 3 times 12. The interest rate was 6.8, and he borrows, because he borrowed it, he got it in his hands to begin with, and he's making payments initially of 1,041.11. So I'm going to find out what his final value is at this time. So we'll do that. I'm going to pause. So we've done that, and we get a negative 142,391.84. Okay, so he still owes that, and so that's normal. That's like a loan, so he still owes that. So when we've now got to go and find the final payment in the new scenario. So we're going to say for the next 22 years, because that will give me a total of 25. So when we do final payments, we always should go to the end of the scenario. So for this end of scenario now, end's going to be the 22 times 12. That's going to get me to the end of the scenario. Now, I have to think about it. There was a change in interest rate. So we now are doing 7.2. And the FV, now, it's like we're starting again, the PV. It's like we're starting again, but we're pretending we're loaning what he's up to. So we're going to loan this negative FV is going to become positive again. So it's going to be a positive 142,391.84. Okay? And then we're going to write payment. They told us the new payments, which was negative 1,076.18. And the FV, this is what we want to know, because we're going to use it to adjust our final payment. It should be close to like zeroing, but we know it won't be. It's not, because it's a final payment, and we've done some rounding and we'll have to adjust. So let's go do that on the calculator and see what that final value is. If we pop that into Finance Solver, we end up with this number here. So that is that. So if I round that, sorry, I probably should have rounded that. So if I round this number, it's going to be 0.10, 10 cents. So, but because it's positive, so because it's a positive 0.10, the bank owes him. So that means his last payment doesn't need to be that. His last payment can be 10 cents less. So it's going to be the 1076.18 minus the 10 cents. So his last payment is going to be 1,076.08.